In the midst of World War II, the skies over Europe were dominated by cutting-edge fighters like the Messerschmitt Bf 109 and the Focke-Wulf FW 190. These planes were symbols of advanced engineering, speed, and firepower, and they were flown by some of the most experienced pilots in the world. On paper, facing these machines in a slower, older fighter seemed almost suicidal. Yet, against all expectations, a particular, obsolete, fighter plane managed not only to survive but to score significant victories against the elite of the Luftwaffe. It was an underdog in the truest sense. A machine considered past its prime that suddenly proved its worth in the most high-stakes environment imaginable. The story of this fighter begins with its reputation. Military analysts, commanders, and even the pilots themselves often referred to it as outdated. Its design was from an earlier era. Its engines were underpowered compared to the latest German models. And it lacked the speed and climb rates of newer aircraft. In air combat, where milliseconds and altitude could decide life or death, such shortcomings should have spelled disaster. And yet, time and again, this plane defied expectations. It wasn't invincible. And it didn't dominate the skies outright, but it found ways to win where it counted. Its victories were not in raw numbers alone. They were in the way it consistently punched above its weight, taking on superior opponents and surviving situations that would have destroyed lesser planes. Part of its success came from its surprising agility. Despite being slower, the aircraft could maneuver in ways that allowed skilled pilots to exploit its strengths while minimizing its weaknesses. In dogfights, it often relied on tight turns, quick dives, and unpredictable movements that caught faster planes off guard. The Luftwaffe pilots, accustomed to facing other high-performance fighters, were sometimes unprepared for the way this obsolete plane could dance through the air, using its smaller size and lighter frame to evade attacks and create opportunities for counter-strikes. It was a lesson in the importance of matching tactics to the strengths of the aircraft, and it showed that speed alone did not guarantee victory. Another factor that allowed this fighter to succeed was reliability. While newer, faster planes often had mechanical issues, early engineered but well-built designs could endure the wear and tear of constant sorties. This plane could fly day after day, carry out missions with fewer breakdowns, and remain serviceable in conditions that might ground more advanced aircraft. For commanders, this dependability was a strategic advantage. Pilots knew that they could count on the machine to respond as expected, to take them to the fight and back, and to hold together when other planes might fail under stress. In the chaos of war, reliability often mattered more than sophistication. The human element also played a critical role. Pilots who flew these older fighters learned to think differently, to embrace tactics that leveraged maneuverability, terrain, and positioning rather than relying on sheer speed or firepower. Ambushes, coordinated formations, and clever use of clouds, sun, and terrain all amplified the aircraft's effectiveness. Each engagement became a chess match, with pilots anticipating enemy moves and using the plane's limitations as opportunities rather than liabilities. These pilots understood that success didn't come from matching the Luftwaffe aircraft pound for pound. It came from creativity, timing, and audacity. The psychological effect of this plane's unexpected victories cannot be overstated. For Allied forces, seeing an aircraft dismissed as obsolete survive repeated engagements and shoot down the Luftwaffe's best boosted morale and confidence. It became a symbol of ingenuity and resilience, proving that even outdated technology, when used skillfully, could challenge the best the enemy had to offer. For German pilots, the experience was humbling. Facing a supposedly inferior opponent that could outmaneuver, outlast, and occasionally outfight them forced a reassessment of tactics and respect for the tenacity of Allied forces. Ultimately, the story of this obsolete fighter plane is a reminder that in war, assumptions can be dangerous. A plane's age, speed, or technical specifications tell only part of the story. In the hands of skilled pilots who understand its strengths and limitations, even a machine considered outdated can make a decisive impact. This underdog in the skies didn't just survive. It turned the expectations of its enemies upside down, proving that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability often matter more than cutting-edge technology. In an era defined by rapid advancements and deadly competition, this aircraft carved out a legacy not measured in innovation, but in the victories it earned against all odds. What made this obsolete fighter truly remarkable wasn't just the machine itself. It was the pilots who flew it and the way they understood its strengths and weaknesses. Technology alone rarely wins a battle. Strategy, skill, and adaptability often make the difference between life and death in aerial combat. In the case of this Underdog fighter, the aircraft's limitations forced its pilots to innovate, to rely on tactics and ingenuity rather than brute speed or firepower, and to turn what others saw as weaknesses into advantages. It was a lesson in how human skill can elevate a seemingly inferior tool into a formidable weapon. Pilots of this aircraft quickly learned that conventional tactics used by faster, more modern fighters would often get them killed. They couldn't simply climb above the enemy, dive at them, and expect to outrun or outgun them. Instead, they had to think creatively, using the plane's lighter weight and smaller frame to their advantage. Tight turns, sudden dives, and rapid changes in direction became standard maneuvers, allowing them to evade the faster, more heavily armed Luftwaffe fighters. Each engagement required split-second decisions, a deep understanding of the aircraft's flight characteristics, and the courage to commit fully to maneuvers that could appear reckless from the outside. Formation flying was another crucial element. While individual skill was important, pilots relied heavily on teamwork and coordination. Flying in pairs or larger groups allowed them to cover each other's blind spots and create traps for pursuing enemy aircraft. One plane would bait the Luftwaffe pilot into an attack, while another would exploit the maneuver to get a shot. In essence, they turned the battlefield into a game of strategy, using positioning, timing, and deception to level the playing field. These tactics didn't just compensate for the plane's deficiencies. They often gave the pilots an unexpected advantage, catching even seasoned German aces off guard. Adaptability was key. No two dogfights were ever the same, and pilots had to constantly adjust to changing conditions, enemy behavior, and the limits of their own aircraft. They learned to anticipate the enemy's moves, to use cloud cover, the sun, and terrain features to their advantage. In some cases, a slower climb or reduced speed actually helped them bait faster opponents into overextending or losing energy, creating openings for attack. The aircraft's age became an asset in unexpected ways because it forced pilots to master tactics that relied on skill rather than technology. This combination of tactics and adaptability extended beyond individual encounters. Over time, lessons learned in the cockpit were passed along to other pilots, creating a culture of innovation within squadrons. Veteran pilots shared the secrets of timing, maneuvering, and exploiting weaknesses in enemy aircraft. Even when new models of enemy planes arrived, these pilots could adjust, applying principles learned with an obsolete aircraft to new situations. It was a reminder that combat effectiveness isn't just about equipment. It's about the people who wield it and their ability to think faster and smarter than the enemy. Psychology also played a role. Luftwaffe pilots expected to dominate engagements with slower or older Allied planes, often underestimating them at first sight. When these obsolete fighters survived, maneuvered skillfully, and even scored kills, it disrupted the enemy's expectations and morale. The surprise factor was significant. Facing a plane that should have been inferior but proved deadly forced the Luftwaffe to reconsider tactics and respect the ingenuity of its opponents. In this sense, the skill of the pilots magnified the effectiveness of the aircraft far beyond what its raw specifications would suggest. Finally, this story demonstrates a timeless truth about warfare. Innovation isn't always about building something new. Sometimes it's about using what you already have in smarter, more creative ways. These pilots showed that determination, intelligence, and adaptability could turn an outdated machine into a weapon capable of taking on the best the enemy had to offer. Technology sets the stage, but human skill writes the story. The success of this aircraft was never about matching the Luftwaffe plane for plane, engine for engine. It was about understanding the tools at hand, maximizing their potential, and refusing to be limited by what others deemed obsolete. In the end, the legacy of this fighter is inseparable from the pilots who flew it. They proved that ingenuity, courage, and tactical brilliance can make even an underdog machine a serious threat in the hands of those who know how to use it. Their story is a testament to the enduring principle that strategy and human skill often outweigh raw technology. And it remains a powerful example of how determination and expertise can turn disadvantage into triumph in the chaos of war.